I'm Leon Lovelace, and this is Unstoppable Force. Now, I need your help. I need you to go to my GoFundMe campaign. I'm going to put a link in the description box below. I need you to go there and donate to my campaign so I can do this show full-time instead of just part-time. I got a news story for you, and it's from The Intercept. It's about how the president of Honduras is getting into it with some authoritarianism. Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez, using the specter of rampant crime in the drug trade, won extensive support from the American government to build up highly trained state security forces. Now, those same forces are repressing democracy. I seem to remember a few instances here in the United States where democracy is being repressed. Two violently and one non-violently. Let's say Flint, Michigan, and Standing Rock, North Dakota, and Democratic primaries. That one was nonviolent. That's a few that are really notable, but let's continue. Post-election situation in Honduras continues to deteriorate as Hernandez, a conservative leader and stalwart U.S. ally in Central America, has disputed the result of last week's vote while working to crack down on protests sweeping the nation. Sounds kind of familiar too. Initial results showed Salvador Nasrallah, an ex-sportscaster chosen by an alliance of left-wing political parties as their candidate, leading the vote count after the November 26th presidential election. The lead was substantial enough that a magistrate on the Supreme Electoral Tribunal, or TSC, estimated a victory by Nasrallah, characterizing his lead as irreversible. The next day, the TSC announced that Hernandez was closing the gap. Then it suddenly stopped publicizing the tally, alleging that its electronic systems went down, prompting criticism from European Union election observers. And this is the really corrupt part of this story, is police and military flooded the streets in the hours of silence that followed. On Wednesday, the announcement that Hernandez had overtaken Nasrallah on the vote count was met with disbelief. So before they even made an announcement about Hernandez pretty much just pulling in some corruption and stealing the election, they're already getting ready to brutalize a shitload of citizens and protesters. And if you remember from our elections, especially our Democratic primaries, some of the exit polls weren't matching up with the election outcomes, and it was from a big margin. And people are saying that if the exit polls aren't within 2% of the final results, there's been some corruption, election, like vote tallying, rigging, or some other corruption that's been going on with the elections. So this is really problematic. All right, let's continue. In the words of Salvadoran journalist Carlos Dada, there are only two possibilities. Either the TSC is of Olympic incompetence or it's committing fraud. So of course, they were committing fraud. They weren't that incompetent. The turn of events led into chaos on the streets, where Hernandez instituted a military-imposed curfew across the nation on Friday. At least one protester has been killed and scores of others have been injured and arrested in violent clashes with police. But really, instead of writers saying there were violent clashes with police, they really need to say that the police were being rough with the protesters, or the police were brutalizing protesters. Because most of the time, when you actually watch the film of these violent clashes with police, it's a bunch of guys throwing rocks at the police in their riot gear. I mean, they're really not gonna fucking get hurt, for the most part, by a shitload of people just throwing some small rocks at them. While they got their bayonets and their shields and they start beating a shitload of people's asses and shoot them with tear gas, which is a war crime. And this is somewhat regular, on a regular basis, that they do whenever there's, protests or big protests. At least for the areas where they really don't tolerate protests. Alright, let's continue. For human rights observers, the curfew and delay of an official recount are steps that produce an inevitable Hernandez victory, regardless of the vote tally. The delay has only served to fuel claims of mass fraud, confusion, and deep suspicion. Karen Spring, a human rights activist with Honduras Security Solidarity Network. The demonstrators went to the street because they know that being calm means allowing a cover-up to happen, what many call a dictator to legally stay in power, she added. So there's more to this article, but I cover the really important stuff and to make this video shorter, because I could go on for another 15 minutes just reading the article. But really the important thing is that it's important that we need to look out and try to get rid of a lot of the corruption and the suppression that's going on in other nations, because would you look and behold, a lot of those forces in Honduras have been trained by American military, by the American military. So your tax dollars are being used to go and suppress and brutalize people in Honduras. So even though, if you may not care that much about the Honduran people, how their rights need to be protected, those same forces are coming to the U.S., or those same tactics are coming back to different areas in the United States and brutalizing your fucking neighbors. So that's one of the more important reasons why you need to make sure you look out for other people in other nations, because that same brutal and terrible shit could come back to fuck you over or fuck someone over that lives right next to you.